on China and drones, some of the videos coming out of China are pretty. I don't know if they're. I mean, clearly they're propaganda, but one thing that I think that I see from people on social media is they're kind of intimidated maybe by some of these things. They're kind of these drone massing things where you've got 500, 1,000 drones in the sky all acting in concert. And I wonder what the actual tactical utility of something like that is. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's like, it looks impressive, just like many military parades from that side of the world.
Yeah.
Looks
Exactly.
impressive. Is it actually effective in combat? I don't know. But on the note of like the Chinese drone capability and the possibility that they would have the controlling share of the best microchips and semiconductors in the world, even if we increase our capacity to produce, a lot of people are saying that they'll be second tier to Chinese microchips, right?
Yeah.
And so I just wonder, if drones are the next frontier, and the technology and the capacity to keep up with the churn of drone warfare. What should we be concerned about Chinese drone programs? Is it something to be worried about? Is it something you've been looking at and kind of dissecting what the threat is or is not?
Yeah. I mean, the chilling reality of the situation we're in is they have both a qualitative and a quantitative edge over us in drone warfare right now.
Mm-hmm.
The debate is how deterministic would that be in a battle over Taiwan? My argument is that even a battle of Taiwan will inevitably lead to some sort of protracted ground war.
Mm-hmm.
Name your battlefield. It could happen somewhere else besides Taiwan too, right? Like I said, I don't anticipate China to just lick their wounds and retreat if they experience a misstep or a misfortune in Taiwan.
Yep.
And I've met a lot of very astute and informed Army generals, U.S. Army generals, and strategic thinkers who keep hammering home the point that wars always involve a ground component. And that if there is a ground component to a war with China, it's going to involve clearly drones, because that has really reshaped the nature of tactical ground combat. And right now, the Chinese, because they've developed this very advanced commercial drone industry, they have qualitative edge. So they have drones which are more advanced. Like the whole DJI industry, like that still is the benchmark drone in Ukraine, still DJI Mavics and Matrices. But more importantly, their quantitative edge, their ability to mass produce these things at scale to match the burn rate of a drone war, a protracted war, is something that just exponentially outpaces our ability right now. We don't have that industrial base to build on, to rely on, to sustain a drone war. And the problem is like, how do you get a company in America to build a factory that's just going to be sitting there mothballed until there's a war that they can just like turn the lights on if there's a war to suddenly ramp up production, right? Like company's going to eat that cost for years until a war happens. Like, so to build up that production capacity, you have to build up a sustainable business model that can sustain that capacity that will be needed to sustain or to match the burn rate of a drone war. So they have those two edges. And I think that, the analogy I use sometimes when I speak to U.S. military personnel is to imagine that scene from the movie 300 when the Spartans are out there and the Persians launch their arrows and it blots out the sky with all those arrows coming on them. And I think that is analogous to what we would face in a war with China, where they're going to blot out the sun with FPV drones. And because of, I think, their cultural permissiveness in ways that, they're going to be much more prone to divorcing humans from the kill chain and the loop, and be much more aggressive at implementing AI than we would. So we could face autonomous swarms from them. That's not being fielded in Ukraine, but like looking ahead, I don't think they're going to be too ethically concerned about taking humans out of the kill chain in the same sense that we might. So yeah, I'm deeply worried about that. And I still think there is a kind of a lack of understanding within the U.S. military in some quarters about, the utility of drones on the battlefield. There's still this idea that lingers that drones are just like a fancy javelin or a fancy mortar. They're just like you're going to have some dude in a platoon. Okay, he's the drone guy. And he's going to use his drone to go take out a tank if he sees one, without understanding that point that I keep trying to bring to bring up is that drones are an architecture. They're an ecosystem. It's a stack of assets that can create a broad range of effects on the battlefield, kill chains.
Like you don't have a drone guy in your platoon. You have a drone brigade.
Yes.
That like their job is drone.
Absolutely.
Like that, like mastering the tactics, the techniques. Like it's a entire restructuring. Like you have a cavalry brigade or a or whatever cavalry. I don't know what their units are called.
Yeah.
Squadrons, troops, stuff like that. The cavalry is different. You know, an aviation wing is organized different. An infantry, a special forces team is organized different. It's like you need a specific unit that is organized and resourced and trains for drone warfare. Not like I have a sniper attached to my platoon and he does sniper stuff.
Exactly. And that, we cited at the very beginning of this talk, the fact that, drones are causing, like, say, 80% of Russian casualties. That's not because drones are so much more technologically advanced than they were 3.5 years ago. It's because there is now a doctrine to implement a commercial technology that really hasn't substantially changed. You really look at an FPV drone, the fuselage of that drone is not any different than FPV drone 3.5 years ago. Like, there's modifications in the bandwidth of the control frequencies and other internal guts things that are changing and adapting. But there hasn't been some like massive technological leap that has suddenly made drones so lethal in the battlefield. It's the way they are employed and the way that they are employed in concert with other unmanned assets that makes them so lethal. And I think that complete retooling of our force structure, like to maximize the potential and the lethal effect of drones and to defend ourselves against our adversaries' drones, you really have to make a very broad change to our force structure. And I think we see signs of that now. I definitely, some of
it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. I mean, some of the initiatives that Secretary Hegseth has put forward are definitely in line with the way we needed to change things, such as like allowing, young soldiers to go out there and buy their own, have funds to purchase drones off the commercial market and experiment with them, things like that, allowing that bottom-up innovation process that's been so important to the Ukrainians. Those are definitely things in the right direction. But I also think it's not just about choosing the right drones or choosing the right technology. Let's also remember that it's the ability to use all these things, develop drone experts within our force, the drone Top Gun school. Like, we need that human capital to match
drone warrant officers.
Absolutely. Like, we need to really make sure that we're focusing on that operational side of things to match the technological tools that our country is so good at producing. And to remember that it's those tactical pressures that are driving the innovations in drone warfare, not some great idea conceived by some, tech genius in some boardroom somewhere.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned DJI. They actually control about 70% of the global drone market. And, obviously that's a Chinese company. If we get into a protracted war with China and it inevitably is a drone war, and that's a huge component of it, right? I mean, the fact that DJI controls 70% of the drones out there, a lot of these drones that, you just said young soldiers are going out and buying commercial off the shelf. Like they're probably DJI drones, right? Like they're probably going out and buying an Air Maverick.
Probably at this point, there's rules against using any Chinese drones, but I think up until recently, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think you're homing in on a very important point is like, do we have the bench, so to speak, of drone firms in America that can produce drones that can match that need? And I think we can get there, but I also I still see our tendency is to fund like a $50,000 or $100,000 FPV drone. It's just like that's not the way, right?
That's the military-industrial complex speaking.
Yes,
because they want the more expensive thing, with the higher margins, and that's a strictly just toxic capitalistic. Not that capitalism is toxic, but the toxic capitalism of extracting value out of things that are for the national good, right? We got to we should be trying to get away from that. I look at that though. You brought up China has both a qualitative and quantitative edge over us with drone capabilities. Well, you go back to World War II, right? The Germans made better tanks than us. We just had more tanks, right? Like, So with this, where it's like, okay, you could overcome, they have better microchips, but if we had more drones, then okay, we can level the playing field, if not, overcome, right?
Yeah.
Like gaps in technology or gaps in materials. But, when they have both more and better,
Yeah.
that's something we should be paying attention to. And I would encourage people to look at, like, again, why did we win in World War II? Bunch of different reasons. One of them, though, was because we were able to transform the entire industrial base of the United States into a war machine and just outproduce all our adversaries, outproduce the Axis.
Right.
More people, more tanks, more planes, everything. The Germans were making better of those individual pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely. I think mass is, and I would argue that mass, if you're going to if there's like a scale or a balance of the importance of, quality and quantity, I think when it comes to unmanned warfare, the quantity side of that balance it's got more importance than when you're talking about obviously like fighter jets or tanks, even the technical sophistication of an FPV drone, I would argue, is much less important than the ability to produce like 1,000 of them a day or